Hello, I'm Joe, and Ghostbusters 2016 is actually pretty good. Disclaimer, if your only argument against this movie is, it's woke trash, blah, 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 blah.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
Jerry.
Look, I'm sorry, but if you're triggered because women are in a movie, I just can't take your opinion seriously. No amount of slurs, profanity, or chronically online behavior is gonna change that. Conversely, though, if this movie simply isn't your jam, that doesn't automatically make you a racist, sexist tyrant who needs to be cast off to Yarnum as prey for the hunt. If it ain't for you, it ain't for you, and that is perfectly fine. I'm hoping that since nearly a decade has passed since its release, we can finally talk about this film as a film and not some weird cultural flashpoint. Because when this one came out, oh boy, it was a thing. Folks had their minds made up before even watching the movie, offended that they would dare besmirch their precious ghost blowjob film. I had to get the joke off, I'm sorry. But in all seriousness, the original Ghostbusters is one of my all-time favorite films. The script is operating on so many levels, it's genuinely astounding. You've got 3 comedic icons operating at the top of their game, and it's sincerely a pinnacle of genre filmmaking, the epitome of catching lightning in a bottle. Heck, I really enjoy Ghostbusters 2. I watched it just as much as the original growing up, and I didn't even realize folks didn't like it until I was a man, and by then my mind was already made up, damn it. I love Ghostbusters the video game. I treat it as the 3rd entry, and I revisit it every October. Heck, one of my biggest disappointments about how G4 panned out was that you never got to see the fire Ghostbuster special that Gabrielle directed the hell out of. Put simply, bustin' makes me feel good. I wasn't immediately outraged by the existence of the 2016 film, nor was I rallying behind it. I had cautious optimism. I liked the cast, and Paul Feig had already shown himself to be a solid comedic director with Bridesmaids, The Heat, and The Criminally Slept-On Spy. He's like the closest thing we got to a modern-day Blake Edwards, and I was genuinely curious to see what his take on a big-ass franchise picture would be. I actually saw this one in theaters twice, once to see it in 3D, which was sick, and the second to take my mom because I knew she would dig it. While Ghostbusters 2016 isn't a classic on the scale of the original, it's about as good as Ghostbusters 2, and I honestly prefer it to 2021's Ghostbusters Afterlife. Largely because Ghostbusters 2016 honored the original by being a contemporary paranormal comedy, whereas Afterlife was light on the jokes, ghostbusting, and kind of fetishized the iconography. For me, it essentially proved Porter Robinson was right when he said, you don't really want what you think you want. Ghostbusters 2016 makes the, at the time, controversial choice to completely ignore the events of the first 2 films and do its own thing, essentially imagining what it would be like if the original Ghostbusters never existed and was made from scratch today. It's a bold choice and one that I rock with to an extent. Our Ghostbusters this go around are Kristen Wiig's Dr. Aaron Gilbert, Melissa McCarthy's Dr. Abby Yates, Leslie Jones' Patty Tolan, and a freaking god-tier Kate McKinnon as Dr. Jillian Holtzman. Seriously, she is the MVP of this shit, which shouldn't be surprising because it's freaking Kate McKinnon. Aaron and Abby were childhood friends and even published a book together about ghosts. Their relationship strained when Aaron disavowed the book and Abby continued on with her studies in the paranormal. They're brought back into each other's orbit when some spooky shit happens to Zach Woods at a spoopy manor. Shout out to Zach Woods, always just a strangely specific, joyfully chaotic vibe. People immediately claim that the video is a hoax because this was when YouTube's prank era was at its peak. I get it. After the video goes viral, Erin loses her job as a university professor, and Abby's grant gets pulled. They launch the Ghostbusters business after their experience, and Patty, an MTA worker, joins the team after seeing a ghost in the subway tunnels. One thing I dug is that each character has a distinct vibe, and they don't feel like one-to-one copies of the OG Ghostbusters. Patty is closest to Winston, not because she's black, because I know you were thinking it, but because she's a working class woman who happens to get caught up in this paranormal nonsense. She's a born and bred New Yorker and knows a lot about the city's history. Holtzman is giving big mad scientist vibes, cooking up all the tech they use for their paranormal journey. Abby is like the middle ground between Ray and Egon with her sincere passion for the science of the paranormal, and Erin is her own neurodivergent vibe. Each character has their own unique strengths they bring to the job, in addition to their different comedic personas. One nice touch is that the movie does an interesting job updating the premise for modern times. It utilizes social media in a way that feels pretty on point for where we were in 2016. And in fact, now that it's been nearly 10 years since its release, it's interesting to look back and see how much blockbuster filmmaking has changed and how, in some ways, it's gotten much, much worse. While it isn't an out-and-out remake of the OG, it manages to capture the vibe in a way far, far better than its successor, Afterlife, in my opinion. Ghostbusters 1 and 2 were outright comedies with surprisingly strong paranormal lore. While this is definitely the last gasp of the improv-heavy comedies of the late aughts, early tens, most of the gags land. There's a vibrant energy to the visual palette, both in the production design and the visuals for the ghosts themselves, and instead of using modern tech to create hyper-real ghosts, it leans into the Looney Tunes energy of the originals. It's just an out-and-out fun movie that, more often than not, delivers on the idea of what a modern Ghostbusters movie would look like. It's forward-thinking, not nostalgic, and that's largely why it works for me. It even takes the same anti-authoritarian stance as the originals and updates it, continually dunking on the principles of neoliberal governance. Much like in Ghostbusters 2, it's clear there's a paranormal problem afoot, but the mayor's office wants to sweep it under the rug to avoid a panic. Even when all New York sees a kaiju ghost wrecking shit, the mayor's office continues to deny that there's a problem. While it generally avoids nostalgia, it does feature cameos from the original cast that range from fine to good. Ernie Hudson's is solid, and Bill Murray's isn't bad, but you can't help but be like, I just want that Bankman energy, bro. Just fucking give it to me. Dan Aykroyd's fares the best, playing a disgruntled cabbie with one of the best lines in the movie.
I don't go to Chinatown, I don't drive Wacos, and I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Also, the big set piece moments are really fun. From a ghostly dragon going buck wild at a metal concert to Holtzman dual-wielding proton pistols during the climax, there's some seriously fun beats here. While I generally dig the movie, I do have some critiques. Mainly, I think the villain is actually pretty weak. Like, it's clear that Rowan's whole beef is that he's been picked on and ostracized his whole life and wants payback on a cosmic scale. He's the guy making all the spoopy happenings happen. And his arc would be compelling if Rowan was at all sympathetic or we got some interesting backstory from him, but instead he's just weird and alienating. Not particularly cool, not particularly funny. He really feels like he exists simply because the movie needs a bad guy. Neil Casey is generally a strong character actor, and I don't think he's giving a bad performance. It's mainly that the characterization makes it hard to take the stakes seriously. Like, if he was positioned in a Janusz Vigo dynamic, I'd probably buy it more, but as it stands, each time we cut to him doing villain shit, I can't help but be like, really? Him? I mean, when you look at Gozer, you're like, yeah, you could wreck my shit. You look at Vigo the Carpathian, and you're like, yeah, you could wreck my shit. You look at this nigga, and you're just like, bro, I've probably cooked you in Fortnite. Like the things I've said, the things I probably said to you on COD Proc Chat make me more of a villain than you. Also, the movie is in this weird push and pull with the originals. One thing that I love about the OG Ghostbusters, particularly Ghostbusters 2, was the use of then current pop music. From the iconic Ghostbusters theme to Bobby Brown's New Jack Banger on Her Own, the movies work as interesting time capsules of the pop cultural era they were in. I honestly would have preferred if we just got a new Fall Out Boy song as opposed to a cover of the OG theme. I like Fall Out Boy. The Believers Never Died tour was one of my first concerts, but I would have preferred they just used the OG theme. I felt the same way in Mortal Kombat 2021. Benjamin Wallfish is a great composer. I loved his work in Blade Runner 2049, but his take on Techno Syndrome fell flat for me. I really hope that we can end the era of updated themes because it never works and it just leaves you in the theater feeling like Batista.
Give me what I want! Give me what I want! That's not what I want!
While I know it was trying to distinguish itself from the OG, I do think some of the iconography with regards to the tech could have remained. The design for the ghost trap is iconic, and while I get the DIY aesthetic they're going for, I honestly think this was the one era they could have maintained a direct through line to the original. Look, The first Ghostbusters is a 10 out of 10 comedic masterpiece, in my opinion. It's a succinct blend of genres anchored by iconic performances, an impeccable script, and Ivan Reitman's sure-handed direction. Deadass, Ghostbusters is up there for me with The Matrix, Hard-Boiled, and Blade Runner as just miracle genre films, things that just shouldn't work as well as they do, and it's insane that like they're as good as they are. While Ghostbusters 2016 doesn't reach those heights, I definitely think it's on par with Ghostbusters 2 as just a really fun paranormal comedy. I watched all 3 of the movies back to back, so I'm pretty fresh on them all. If this was an out-and-out remake where the OG roles were recasted, I'd probably be in the camp of not getting down with the movie, but I really respect that it does its own thing. The same way Ghostbusters 1 and 2 feel like products of their time, Ghostbusters 2016 feels distinctly like a mid-2010s comedy. And if you're not a fan of that era of comedy, that's completely valid. This movie probably is not going to work for you. But for me, it's got some fun gags, some fun set pieces, and is generally a fun way to kill a couple hours. If I'm in the mood to watch a Ghostbusters, I'm probably going to pop on the first movie, just keeping it real. But if I'm in a marathoning type of mood, I'd more likely program this after Ghostbusters 2 than Ghostbusters Afterlife. I feel like a large segment of the audience went into this one with their arms crossed, their minds already made up about it, and I don't think that's fair to any movie. And look, in my late teens, early 20s, I was just as guilty for carrying those kind of attitudes. But as I got older and experienced, like loss, disillusionment, public professional failure, I learned real quick that there are things far worse in this life than a movie not being what you want it to be. I guess the closest thing I experienced to what fandom felt for this movie was Rise of Skywalker. It was the final chapter of the Skywalker saga, a saga I spent literally my entire life being invested in. The Star Wars trilogy are the first movies I remember watching. And I left the theater utterly disappointed. After sharing that disappointment with my mom and friends, I went home, smoked a joint, booted the PlayStation, and went about my evening. Because at the end of the day, while I love Star Wars to my core, it's just a movie. And getting that worked up over make-believe, no matter how much it means to me, doesn't seem like a productive use of my energy. There's a difference between being critical and vitriolic, and when it comes to art, I simply don't think there's any place for the latter. So, that's my spiel. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and please keep it kind in the comments. Again, it's just a movie. We're just having opinions over movies. That's all this is. So, stay chill, and yeah, see you soon.